Good afternoon. This is Kyle Welch with RCR Wireless News. I want to thank everyone for attending Signal Boosters Past, Present, Future, presented by SureCall. Our presenter today is Curt Burkhart, Director Sales and Marketing at SureCall. Just a reminder to everyone in the audience that within 24 hours of this webinar, we will provide everyone with a link to the on-demand version of today's webinar, as well as a copy of the slides. During the webinar, we encourage everyone to submit their questions via the question panel on the GoToWebinar control panel. With that being said, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Curt.
Okay, thank you very much, Kyle. Hi, everybody. I hope you're having a good day, and thank you for joining. We'd like to have a few minutes to talk about the past, the present, and the future of how this whole ruling has come about and how it affects the industry in general and SureCall products in particular a little bit. So with that, I'll get started, and we'll talk about on our next slide there. What really brought this about was a ruling that occurred on March 20th last year, and basically the FCC brought about the change and allowed for everybody to be on the same playing field a little bit with regards to the signal deficit problem within homes and buildings and mobile, vehicles, cars, boats, what have you. So for us, it seemed a very positive effect and something that was going to allow us all to compete a little friendlier out there. It's a ruling that even the commissioner at the time, Janikowski, came about and indicated that it signals a rolling out of the signal booster industry. So we're very excited with the ruling in general, and I think all of us who make these kind of products are in a better place for it. So having said that, in the past, all of our products were FCC approved. So there was a standard with the FCC, of course, for approving product. But in general, I think the carriers disagreed with that standard a little bit, and without uniform application of certain safeguards, I think what you found was there were cases where noise or interference was affecting towers, and the relative amount of those interference issues, caused a lot of bad feelings, and sometimes I think carriers even believed that these products were illegal or not useful to the system. So in general, the movement and the ruling gave credence to and legitimacy to our products and where they fit. And the good news is, basically, there are several schools of thought of how to achieve more optimal signal inside buildings and vehicles, particularly in buildings where it's a very common issue depending on who you subscribe to the school of thoughts out there, but it's maybe up to 70% of buildings have some degree of signal limitation or sometimes severe signal limitation. And so the various applications, whether it be a full DAS deployment, which is relatively costly for most buildings and small businesses, homes and vehicle operators, of course, but signal boosters is another way to achieve a better situation. And then there's other approaches like VoIP or other backhaul or internet-based type activities. So really, from our perspective, there's a lot of business to go around out there, and it's nice to see that the FCC signals that our place is now part of the wireless infrastructure. So having said that, now we know that we have a law in place. We know that recently the FCC went ahead and put a a little bit of a delay. The original ruling was set to start March 1st, 2014, and now we've got 2 months more out to April 30th or May 1st to institute the new product. And this is really a result of some delays that the FCC had imposed on themselves. I don't think testing really got underway as quickly as I know our company and others had anticipated. So what happened is we now have a situation where coming April or May 1st, all products will have to meet the new standard. And we're going to look a little bit at what we've done from our company's perspective, and I think all the other companies in this business are doing roughly the same thing. So first, a little bit of a definition in terms of what really is meant by consumer signal booster. So I should say that on first look, the ruling came out, it was apparent to a lot of people that the intent of the law was really to limit consumer signal boosters really to homes and vehicles. But as the document proceeds and you read through it, you see pretty quickly that the real spirit and intent of the law was really to include their definition of individuals or consumers actually as individuals and non-individuals, and that the development of that definition also included small businesses and organizations and government jurisdictions. So depending again on whose study or information you want to look at there, that up to 99% of businesses in this country are considered a small business, and then again small organizations or governmental institutions, all of which are amenable or acceptable of consumer devices being placed in them. So we kind of, for our purposes, needed to make that clear and to get that sort of clarification from the FCC, because a large part of the business that we do, filters into small office, home office, and small businesses all over the country. So it was very important for us to make that distinction, and there's been enough challenges to that way of thinking for us to be 100% comfortable at this time that basically our products can go in where the people want them to go. Okay, so I'm moving on to where we stand with the FCC at this point. Our products to date, I think we have 4 signal boosters that are FCC certified. I think there's another 6 waiting final certification. And we have a couple more that we recently submitted to labs for some additional products. So we are pretty well in place to have all of our products certified prior to the date of May 1st or April 30th. All of our products meet all of the new guidelines, and there are some significant, interesting new developments that I want to talk about. First of all, as we move through this, we pretty much classified products at SureCall into one of 4 basic classifications, all of which meet the consumer guideline. So just to quickly review, we've talked about how the ruling came about and what the FCC intended and has in mind for the like products. And now I'm going to speak a little bit about how SureCall goes to market with those products. We classify our products into 4 different levels at this point. And some of those things may change as we go. as new developments occur. But for now, we have four basic classes. So you'll see there we have M2M product. There may be some revision to how we market those, but we have a couple of products that are basically for the likes of ATM machines and teller machines, those kind of things, vending machines and such. And we may talk about that a little more later. We also make products in what we call a to-go market, or vehicles or mobile type boosters. We have products for home and SOHO applications, and then our popular commercial in-building type products. Next slide. So to get to the heart of what the FCC really put on the industry, they basically changed the box itself, which would, in the past, we would sell a 65 dB amplifier, and that 65 dB power would be spread over all of the bands, generally a 2-band or a 3-band, and sometimes a 5-band amplifier, which would cover most carriers or selectively certain carriers in certain situations. But overall, the power of the amplifier was, nominal, either 65, some were 70, 75, up to 80 dB, and some lesser value ones. What the carriers really wanted was for the amplifiers to be more specific and carry a maximum dB gain on each of the variable bands that are in play. So as you can see here, the AWS, which is primarily T-Mobile's 4G area, was limited to 72 dB, PCS at 71, Cellular at 65, and the LTE band between AT&T and Verizon's blocks were limited to 64 dB, interestingly. So the new product has to incorporate that. If it's a 2-band, the typical 2-band we have out there covering PCS and Cellular, you're going to see that it's no longer just the 65 dB, but it's some combination of 71 and 65 dB, and the coverage for most of the signal boosters that are out there really didn't change in terms of the amount of square feet that the common signal boosters used in homes would cover. In other words, for us, they stay the same, about 6,000 square feet. There's ample power in the minimum 65 dB of that band. So the real concern in the mobile amplifiers, those are limited to 50 dB across whatever bands. So they're really holding back on the amount of power that you can have in a boat or a car or RV, so that if it's moving around, coming in and around towers, it's less likely to cause interference. All of these products are really, really limited in the ability to cause much interference to any tower anymore with some of these capabilities. So with those things in mind, let's go to the next slide, and we'll talk a little bit about what some more of the safeguards that are put into place with each of the boosters. So keeping in mind that each band has its own power limitation, to speak more specifically to the real power of the amplifier and its ability to cause interference with towers, the old product was a 3-watt EIRP, and the new product is, all the new consumer boosters are 1-watt EIRP boosters. So I don't know that necessarily means that effectively they are a third the power, but in truth, if you were to place a signal booster at the center of a circle and draw a circle representing, say, 35 miles out, maybe even 40 miles out, and drew another circle inside of that at about 30 miles, that's the effective difference in the power of the amplifier. So for us, we know that does reduce the distance from towers that these will operate well. And so we may have other ways to go after that signal with the Yagi or whatever. But for the most part, the amplifiers in most urban environments these days are going to be unaffected. And still, like I said, with the average dB gain of the home booster in particular, the power limitation isn't enough to cause significant weakness. So they're all fine. The 50 dB gain in a 1 watt mobile booster is ample for for the coverage it's intended to. The area where it's most affected is in more robust commercial amplifiers. We make a couple of products called a Dual Force and a Force 5 that's very popular. That's highly linear products and intended for multiple users. You could use it in a brokerage house or a small business and have plenty of power and not worry too much about whether everybody could use it or not. Those amplifiers are kind of limited because we used to put out 80 dB amps or signal boosters in that market. They'll be limited to an average of the aforementioned dB gains per band, and at 1 watt versus 3 watt, you're not going to see our Force 5 do 80 or 100,000 square feet like it used to. And I'll talk more about those products in a little bit, but the real difference for us was in those more commercial related products that'll take them down to closer to 25,000 square feet. What we're calling a triple safeguard to the tower, most all of the product that's been built by us or other lively competitors in this business have included one or more of these safeguards, but now all three are inside the box going forward. They're all important in terms of reducing the amount of noise, if you will, to the tower, and all help make sure that the product is working sort of at its peak and best performance. So automatic gain control is fairly familiar to most of the people who know signal boosters. They've asked for some refinements and some better capabilities along those lines. It kicks in a little sooner than it did before, and it's a little more defined, so the amplifiers will simply work better in that regard. Oscillation detection is similar to where it's always been, but they tightened up that spec a little bit too. And I apologize, I'm not going to go into real technical details about these parts of the amplifier's performance, but we will, if you have questions and you submit those later, we will answer technically, specifically, if you like. And then the third is automatic shutdown, and this is one that's critical in a lot of environments, particularly in mobile environments, and because they tend to come and go closer or more or further away from a tower. And as they get into what we would call kind of a hot situation where they're in a car or a boat or what have you, moving right up close to a tower, the signal is very hot, and amplifiers have a tendency to send back a little bit of noise in that regard. So that was I think it's always been a very a big point of issue for the carriers in terms of making these signal boosters legitimate and have merit in the infrastructure in general. So that's those three. I think those are all very important. none of which are particularly new to the technology, but the refinements and the fact that they're all free there for every new product is new, and that's pretty good stuff. A third value there is the stealth mode, and this is new for us anyway, and I think it's a really great new addition. It's really going to help with the product to go to sleep when there's no uplink sort of activity. So at night in a home or a small business where the people are gone or asleep, the instrument itself will go to sleep and will save in energy and be a greener product in that regard. So that was something that they asked for, and they got it. The fourth is something that's always been prevalent and always been a part of a signal booster in general, but think of it a little bit as bleed over or out of band emissions detection. So essentially, I think what led to this for the most part is in the 800 bands, a lot of the public safety frequencies ride right up next to the cellular frequeny, and some bleed over or interference with those bands could occur. And so there's a formula for that, and technically, basically what they did was tighten up the spec so that the amplifier isn't boosting signal outside of the prescribed nominal area that it's supposed to. So it's really, really tightened up that, and it's making it so there's a lot less questions from public safety officials about whether the technology is the right thing or not. So next slide, please, Tal. Well, this is an interesting thing because, as I mentioned earlier, we believe, and I believe that the industry in general now understands that there is a lot of business out there. There's a lot of buildings and homes and people with vehicles who have less than optimal signal environments that want help. And really the best solution from a performance and from the carrier's perspective would probably be DAS, of course. DAS and fiber DAS related solutions. However, the problem for those at this point anyway is they're very costly and a little bit time consuming to get the jobs done. And with our products and products like ours, the signal booster, much simpler, easier to install, a lot of conditions which make it a favorable solution based on the knowledge that let's just assume there's far less or no interference to the tower. There's really not much of a roadblock for installing a more cost-effective solution that is pretty simple to do. So when we say that a DAS installation is up to 6 times higher than a signal booster installation, that's about right. We would generally say prior to the new law, the typical installation that we see from our products using a qualified installer would cost somewhere between 10 and 15 cents a square foot. And we may see more amplifiers to do bigger space in the commercial side of this, but in general, our installations usually come in well under 25 cents a square foot. Even in the new, even if you were to double, triple, even quadruple the hardware costs for a large installation with our product, we'd still see under 30 cents a square foot installed. And I think the most reasonable DAS installation costs is probably closer to $1, $1.25. But we see them at $1.50. So The cost value analysis for our product is very, very good. If we give clients or customers the warm and fuzzy feeling that they're getting a product that works at a cost that's more likable to to small buildings and such, we have a very favorable sort of scenario to sell. So we're real pleased with all of this aspects on the ruling and how it makes us fit into the general cost value analysis. So that's really the basis for our topic. I guess we didn't go too much into specific products in this talk, but like I said, we do have products, and our competitors are offering products that fit all of the various categories that we talked about. And I think at this point we can go into some questions.
Thanks, Curt. So yeah, we had a few questions come in during the presentation. So I'll just start with the first one we got. Will this FCC ruling have a long-term positive or negative effect on the industry?
Well, that's a good question, because prior to the ruling, there was a pretty overwhelming perspective that the carriers had that signal boosters were absolutely rogue or not part of the wireless infrastructure. And the reasons were clear. There was too many instances of interference or poorly devised layouts or designs for systems, and not a lot of recourse for the carriers other than to identify the source and come banging on doors to try and get it fixed. So the advent of the ruling, which was the results of a culmination of a lot of effort from the signal booster manufacturers, including the CEO of our company, and the carriers themselves and representatives from each of the major carriers and many of the small carrier association, or the rural carriers, I should say, and then the FCC themselves. That joint sort of commission really came up with the standards that we see today to gain legitimacy and merit and make it part of the wireless infrastructure, so that now the carriers can see that these belong in the space that they belong in, and they've refined the technology enough to where they can kind of sleep at night and understand that the products aren't going to, are very limited in the ability to cause noise back to the towers. And the recourse has been well defined as well, which was important to our industry, that the recourse for situations where there was a problem is also defined, and that's really very simple as well. The owner of the signal booster system has the obligation to fix the situation. If the carriers come knocking and have identified a problem, then they simply need to fix it, and they can fix it using customer, technical support from our company. They can fix it using qualified installer, if that's who they used in the first place, or they can attempt to fix it themselves with fairly easy to understand instructions on how to do so. So to answer the question, it's a very, very positive step for the industry. Thanks.
Okay, next question we had come in. Do consumer boosters always have to be sold in kits?
Well, that's an excellent question. According to the new law, yeah, the indication is pretty clear there that they prefer or intend for a product to be kitted with the like amount of cable and FCC approved antennas and cable, so that people can't really get too, I guess the right word would be artistic with the layout and with the design of these systems. But the caveat to all that is there will be times when people need to acquire a standalone booster or cable or antennas, and they need to be free to do so. So that's also noted in the document. And I would say, coming from the sales perspective from my company's representation, we are going to kit all of our product and put it for sale under the new terms, but I kind of reserve the right to adjust to the market as we see. I believe personally, in 6 months or a year's time, we'll see enough activity where, you know, there'll still be sort of customized setups as long as they're based on the criteria set forth by the FCC. So I guess the answer is a little bit two-part there, but on the one hand, yes, for now, I think it's best to interpret the law to say that everything should be kitted at this point.
Okay, thanks. Next one. We know homeowners have to register boosters with their carrier under the new rules, but what does this mean for businesses in regards to registration?
Well, it's really the same for everybody. The law is intended to affect everybody the same. A homeowner or a business owner, or perhaps the dealer that sold the product to them could take that responsibility on for the client if they wanted, but the product needs to be registered. The problem is that I think when the document was released, when the law was made, the intent was, or the feeling was, that there would be a sort of clearinghouse place on the FCC website or elsewhere where people could simply register their device. I think the bottom line is the carriers need you know, a database that they can go to if they detect signal issues or tower issues, and they could determine where that is coming from and quickly match that up on the database and see that if it's a registered device, they could tell what they're working with, and probably save themselves a lot of time before they go knocking on the door and asking to solve the situation. So the problem is that there is no clearinghouse registration at this point. There's really not a determination as to who you register it with. If you're a home and you're a Verizon family, let's say, it might make most sense, of course, to register with Verizon. Verizon does have a website for registration up and running now, and it does require you to either have a Verizon account or be a Verizon customer to do so. I think T-Mobile also has a website, and I'm not certain about AT&T at this point. So to answer the question, I think it's a matter of choice. I don't think that there's anything in the law that requires somebody to register with every known carrier. That would be a little problematic and a little bit difficult to enforce. So I think what they would be happy with is if everyone registers with somebody and go forward from there.
Okay, next question. In regards to the new regulations, do you have any insight on what the FCC says about improving outdoor coverage?
Well, I think that the outdoor coverage has always been sort of taboo on behalf of the FCC. I think that they prefer that signal boosters are limited to indoors or in mobile areas. So I think the clearest answer to the question is all signal boosters are intended for indoor use. To speak sort of off the record, this is a big wide off the record because it's clearly going on the record from my perspective, but there are cases out there we know of in certain environments where people set up very limited areas in a tent or otherwise what might seem as an open outdoor area to solve a problem in very, very rural, away from power type situations. But I can't speak intelligently to those things. I do know that I can't cite exactly where in the law it says, but I'm certain the FCC prefers these products to be used indoors. That's it.
Okay, next question. Does SureCall have a signal booster to support all carriers?
Yeah, with a bit of an asterisk, we have a product called Force 5. It's been very popular in small business and commercial installations because it supports hundreds of users and it supports all carriers. The CEO of our company was the first he invented 5-band technology. We have a patent pending on that technology. We were the first really to bring tri-band products to market as well, but they're more carrier specific with a bit of a hybrid for the all carrier 2G, 3G applications. But to answer the question, yes, we have currently 2 products ready. They are in the queue at the FCC, and I believe are all but officially approved so far. But our product is a Force 5, and the other is called a Fusion 5, which is for smaller spaces.
Okay, next question. Do you know if a signal booster that is approved or certified for consumer installation, can it legally be used for industrial installation?
Well, that's the great gray area, isn't it? So it's a matter of definition. According to the law, as we read it, any business owner or group of individuals or non-individuals who wish to employ the use of a consumer booster in their building or series of buildings has the right to do so. It's really the difference in the signal booster themselves that really make the difference to whether it's an industrial booster per se or a consumer. So if you look at it from that perspective, the signal booster itself, if it meets all of the consumer specifications and guidelines, is free to be deployed or used by any consumer or individuals or non-individuals, small businesses to large, that want to employ the use of that product to solve a problem for themselves. If you were to install a signal booster outside of the consumer guidelines, then that signal booster or that apparatus would then be classified in the industrial area and would need to meet those requirements and meet the challenges and meet the needs of the carriers specific to that location, and that's really the differential. So to answer your question, I don't think that consumer boosters are necessarily what the industry prefers necessarily for a large industrial environment, but the case-by-case nature of the large industrial environment might be a better determination for whether you need to use an industrial or DAS type solution, or whether for certain buildings within that large industrial complex you can use a consumer solution, just as you might use other consumer products inside those buildings. So I think we still have the same sort of ability and recognition that our products are fair, and as long as they meet the consumer guidelines and are used under the terms of the consumer guidelines, it's really a choice one makes.
Okay, thanks. We've had a number of questions just kind of in regards to the registration process with carriers. Could you go in a little greater detail on the registration process itself?
Yeah, we've done it a couple of times ourselves, just to try and familiarize ourselves. Like I said before, I think what we wanted to see anyway was a clearinghouse registration which wasn't carrier specific, but maybe the carriers would all have access to it, so that a consumer or an individual in the public could buy their signal booster or register their previously installed signal booster and just go on a website and type in a limited amount of information, which is all they require. Maybe a name and an address and the type of product being installed. So you might, John Doe at such and such a place in Arkansas, and we bought a SureCall Flex 65, whatever. So that's all they require. And the problem being is, to date, right now, I think that 2 of the carriers have stepped up with, and I could be wrong, but usually I kind of hear about it when the carriers have come up with their page. I'm not aware that AT&T has done so yet, but I do know that Verizon has a website. You can type in signal boosters in their search and get to that page. And I think it's pretty much the same situation with T-Mobile. And so if you choose to register your booster with one of those 2 or another, that's all you do. You go on. In the Verizon case, I believe you have a Verizon account. I think it's called My Verizon, I think, and maybe a login. And then you simply click on the registration bar, and it lets you. I think it's a very limited amount of information they're asking for. So that's the extent of it. I'm hoping, probably as much as anybody else on this call is hoping, that we get to a point where they make it a seamless and easy and maybe not carrier specific registration. But that's all there is today.
Thanks. We had quite a few questions come in about the Force 5. Will the Force 5 now be identified as a consumer device?
Yes, we rebuilt, re-engineered. Actually, all of our products are totally re-engineered, and that's no different for the Force 5. It has to meet all of those individual band power requirements, so no longer will it be an 80 dB product. It's some combination of the earlier sizes, 72 and 71 and 65 and 64 dBs. So it's going to be limited in its scope. It'll still handle literally hundreds of users. It's really the workhorse. It's the product out there that is really a go-to for any kind of environment, which multiple users will be involved in large numbers like that. And it's full scale. The only difference really is, because of the power limitations, is that it brings it down to about 25,000 square feet of coverage, as opposed to what we used to get 80, 100,000, sometimes even more in an open, like a warehouse or something. But yeah, that's really where it limits itself, is in the amount of coverage it'll do. But the product, we can't wait to release it very soon.
Okay, thanks. Another question. Many commercial installations currently use inline boosters to help push and pull the signal. Will inline boosters be legal under the new rules?
The new guidelines didn't take into account for inline boosters at all. So we really have to rethink the use for them. So, in homes that might have used inline boosters in the past, you're probably stuck with using maybe an additional amplifier to cover a very large or very separate wings, say, of a home. If that's the case, in the commercial space, the use of inline boosters was predominantly in vertical structures, I believe. and in other long linear applications, I suppose, in certain industrial buildings or commercial space. So because the power of the new amplifiers is a little bit more limited, then you don't really need the inline boosters as much because you're going to deploy probably more amplifiers. The inline boosters usually were about the same cost as the amplifier, the primary amplifier anyway. We don't think on a small scale it'll add some cost, but in general you won't lose too much value in doing a more cookie cutter type design. So inlines are out.
Okay, we have time for about one more question. So, will these new FCC regulations help or hinder new product development?
Well, I'm glad you asked that one because we are, my boss and the lead engineer for our company has been an innovator in our industry for quite some time, and I can say that I know for a fact that he's sitting on several new developments and a lot of good things that we're very anxious for him to start having some time to get to work on. We know that there are areas for improvement, and we know that there's a lot of good new things to come. I can't speak directly towards those things yet, but trust me, I know they're coming. And so based on that, I can easily say that it's a very positive development for the industry, and that it will give rise to the advent of more positive new technologies and products in the space. And so we're very, very encouraged about getting the ruling behind us, getting all the re-engineered product behind us, having a legitimized place in the general wireless infrastructure, and having a lot of fun with our share of the business that's out there.
Okay, thanks. That's about all the
All
time
right.
we have. I want to thank everyone for attending Signal Boosters Past, Present, Future, presented by SureCall. Once again, our presenter today was Curt Burkhart, Director of Sales and Marketing at SureCall. Thanks, Curt.
All right. Thank you very, very much.